Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City, and welcome to the Earth Day Sunday service presented by our environmental ministry of this church. I am Michael Milkey, and I am one of the founders of this environmental ministry. At the end of our service, please join us at our table in Elliott Hall, find out about our programs, and you can choose to join us and be part of this environmental ministry. The theme of our service today is sacred activism. And for our opening words, we'll turn to Andrew Harvey, who's the creator of the Institute for Sacred Activism. Sacred activism is a transforming force of compassion in action that is born of a fusion of deep spiritual knowledge, courage, love, and passion. With wise, radical action in the world, the ecological, political, and spiritual world crisis that we currently find ourselves in is a call to action. It's an opportunity for us to understand the realities around us and to rally together to do something different. Matthew had helped me at the first service. This is my first time of ever lighting the chalice. But I know the words. Symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of warmth, symbol of freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here, we gather together to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. Please stand as you're willing and able, and join us in singing the Blue Boat Home. You'll find the words in your order of service.
those wise lyrics from Peter Mayer, an apt invitation to our time for meditation and prayer, a time when we lean over the edge of our lives to stare and wonder and ask questions, to seek that which upholds us and urges us on. And so I invite you now to turn in silence towards that which you find most holy, for prayer, for meditation, and for reflection. Most holy, beloved mystery of life, we thank you for this, another day of life, and all that is in it, the giggles and the tears, the murmurs and the silences, for the edges of our lives that we peer over and the questions that are stirred within us, for those beings and forces which uphold and sustain us and carry us forward. We come here to this time and this place to be grounded and to be challenged, seeking wisdom and courage, comfort. We come to know and to be known, and we come with some awareness, both subtle and profound, of our connections, both to each other, to people beyond this place, and to the larger life that we share, that connects each to all and to every. Such knowledge of connection can bring us joy or dread, acceptance, celebration of the responsibilities that come with these connections. For we long to know and to show that our lives matter. We come seeking wisdom for how to live with this knowledge. So ground us, O mystery, and guide us in this time and this community. For those of us who come wounded, may there be healing. For those of us who come righteous, may there be softening and joining. For those of us who come knowing, may there be sharing. And for those of us who come wondering, may there be revelation. To these imperfect words, we add the silent intentions of our hearts and minds. May our prayers be heard, may our hearts be restored, and may our hope be renewed. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be.
Our reading today is from We Were Made for These Times by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She's an American poet, post-trauma specialist, and Jungian psychoanalyst, and author of The Women Who Run with the Wolves. My friends, do not lose heart. We were made for these times. I have heard from so many recently who are deeply and properly bewildered. They are concerned about the state of affairs in our world now. Ours is a time of almost daily astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. You are right in your assessments. The luster and hubris some have aspired to, while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, are breathtaking. Yet I urge you, ask you, gentle you, please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Especially do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. Yes, for years we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. Regarding awakened souls, there have never been more able vessels in the water than there are right now across the world, and they are fully provisioned and able to signal one another as never before in the history of humankind. In any dark time, there is a tendency to veer toward fainting over how much is wrong or unmended in the world. Do not focus on that. There is a tendency, too, to fall into being weakened by dwelling on what is outside your reach, by what cannot yet be. Do not focus there. That is spending the wind without raising the sails. We are needed, that is all we can know. And though we meet resistance, we more so will meet great souls who will hail us, love us, and guide us. And we will know them when they appear. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world at once. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe, there can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for.
Sacred activism, to me, implies a connection to nature. In the case of this song, The Changing Tide, it's a connection to the ocean. You'll find my song in the order of service, the words for your reference while I sing. Of importance, the chorus is the ocean speaking to me. The waves roll in and off the shore, on and on forevermore. The rhythm soothes the savage me, calms my soul, and sets me free. The waves rise up and bid to me in pounding surf and crashing sea. I climb the rocks in cooling spray and hear within what seems to say, learn from my past, I'll show you how for life to last. The future's now. Walk by my side. Cast off your wares. Give up your pride and worldly cares. The tide flows in and out again. The life it brings should never end, but changes stir a fear in me. The die is cast upon the sea. I lay my burdens on the shore. In scouring waves and breaking roar, the waters wash away my fear, and from within I seem to hear, learn from my past, I'll show you how, for life to last, the future's now. Walk by my side, cast off your wares, give up your pride and worldly cares. The changing tide speaks to my heart. I'll gladly bend to bear my part. May we all bend to bear our share. With many hands this burden bear. God help us live in harmony through troubled times on stormy seas. For in the seas all life is bound, in roaring waves the seas resound. Learn from my past, I'll show you how, for life to last, the future's now. Walk by my side, cast off your wares, give up your pride, and worldly cares, and worldly cares, and worldly cares.
Thank you, Art, and thank you all in the environmental ministry for the privilege of joining you in leading this service today. To those of you who I've not yet met, I'm Reverend Matthew Cockrum, a consulting minister with this congregation for a few more weeks. And along with the environmental ministry and Tom Goldsmith and the board and staff and really the congregation, it is a privilege to serve the mission and ministries of this place. If you take a look in your bulletin, there are announcements of many other ways that you can engage in that mission and ministry. Environmental ministry is one of those ways, and you can continue working in those areas by taking part in the highway cleanup next Saturday, and then in the evening or the afternoon, going to the People's March that you'll hear more about later on, as well as participating in adult religious education opportunities. Our final Seeking the Sources class is tomorrow night, 6:45. For meditation and movement and reflection. You don't have to have been there before, and you don't have to be the most limber person, but feel free to join us. Along with, I'll draw your attention to a session that Reverend Tom Goldsmith will be leading on Thursday the 4th with Dr. Wazir Jefferson about how to speak with folks across the divide. So if you're looking for ways to talk with folks in your life who might have different ideological viewpoints than yours, you might have some of those in your life. This is a great opportunity to watch a TED Talk and then have some meaningful conversation about what that might look like. No registration required, just come to Elliott Hall that evening. And a final reminder that our pledge drive continues for the coming fiscal year. So this church's fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30. And if you haven't made a financial pledge for that fiscal year, please do so. Yellow pledge cards can be found in the church office where our administrator is, Hal Gonzalez. And this congregation gains the vast majority, I think 90% of its income, from pledges of members and friends. So please let us know what we can expect so we can let you know what to expect in terms of staffing and programming and lights and heat and all of those fun things. I'd like to turn now to David Owens for a special live announcement.
The presentation of this gift is going to be done a little different in that I'm going to tell you what it is before it gets opened. But the story is kind of nice. I was over at the home of Bill and Ruth Olson the other day, and Ruth had been going through some things, and she ran across this, and obviously it has a lot of meaning, not only to her, but to the sentiment as well, and she wanted to present it to someone. She said, you know, this belongs to someone, and I have an idea who. What it is, it's a sampler that was done by her mother during the Depression. And it's a lovely sample. It exemplifies a time and place when things were tight, and conservation and reusability and sustainability were also on people's minds, much in the same way that they are with our environmental ministry now. And Ruth said, you know, we really need to do, I would like to give this to someone that exemplifies that idea of conservation and continuity and reusability. And of course, she had Joan Gregory in mind when this came through. So from one point once removed back quite some time ago to a new point in the future, it's a way to acknowledge and recognize just how much Joan does for us. Yeah, let's go ahead, okay. Of course it is. It says, make it do, wear it out, use it up, do without. Isn't that perfect? So,
So as the ushers come forward to receive this morning's offering, please take a moment to extend your congratulations and greet a neighbor who you don't know. Joan asked me to remind folks that that sampler will be at the environmental ministry table after service. So if you didn't get a chance to take a look at it, please do. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. Well, you got peanut butter on my chocolate. Anyone remember those lines from a Reese's peanut butter cup television commercial from the 70s and 80s? Two hip young people, or hip for the 70s and 80s that is, are strutting down the sidewalk wearing headphones, which they're listening to their Walkmans with, the 70, 80 versions of the iPod. One of them is munching on a chocolate bar, and the other one is eating peanut butter by the jar, or by the spoonful from the jar, because you know everybody walks down the street eating peanut butter by the spoonful. So since they're not paying attention to their surroundings, distracted as they are by their music and their munchies, they bump into each other. And the chocolate bar drops into the jar of peanut butter, which prompts the exclamations. Of course, each tastes and discovers that they go well together, almost as if they were meant to be. And a nearby shopkeeper hands the new friends a package of Reese's peanut butter cups. Two great tastes that taste great together. I share this with you, and I do have a few more to share, if you actually want. 3. That is good. I share this with you Because spirituality and social justice, the divine and the activist, the sacred and the secular, are often conceived of as separate. Chocolate and peanut butter. Different aspects of reality, and yet we here are part of a tradition among those which affirm that these two are inseparable. Indeed, that any separation is in fact the production of our imaginings and ignorance, of misinformed conceptions about the world. I share this with you too because my entrance into this faith tradition was focused on spirituality, what I'll call chocolate. The yummy, rich, delectable, deep down satisfying, sugar high producing element. And yet when I met my husband, Chad, he was completing a degree in social justice education. Having been raised in a very skeptical environment, he was hearing from his comrades in the activist world, however, about how much strength they drew from their faith. And this seemed to make little sense to him as someone who was raised to be very cautious about organized religion. Chad was looking for more spirituality in his social justice, and I was looking for more social justice in my spirituality. Two great tastes that taste great together. And yes, you've heard me reference this before and recently, but I, like perhaps some of you, did not come into this tradition because of the activist heritage, but rather because of the inclusive heritage. Yet, the two inform each other. They feed each other. The stance of radical inclusion is itself an act of and an outgrowth of radical activism. Drawing the circle wide, including folks with the belief that differences of belief, of sexual orientation, of gender expression, of theology, all of these things bring more fullness and more truth and reality to our experience of beloved community and to our living of our faith beyond these walls. This tradition that we claim and that claims us is one whose proponents were part of the social gospel movement, which champions social reforms with an understanding that the gospel, the good news, is not primarily to be preached in sermons, but lived in lives. And not by pious prayer or even necessarily weekly worship, but by participating in building and revealing the commonwealth of heaven, here and now. Through things like access to decent housing and health care, through relevant public education, through gender liberation, through the application of scientific principles to the art and craft of living. We here today are but contemporary incarnations of this impulse that understands that the sacred is not separate from us or from activism. Indeed, that the sacred and the activist are one and the same, reminiscent of these words attributed to Jesus in the Gospel according to Matthew, if you'll indulge me, in a scene in which Jesus is said to be predicting and describing a final judgment, in which a king says to those to whom he gathers, "Come, you that are blessed, and inherit the kingdom. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. And I was in prison, and you visited me." I can imagine adding here, "I was the earth, and you tended to me." And then the righteous answered, "When was it that we saw you hungry and thirsty? When did we welcome you, give you clothing, and visit you?" And they're answered, "Just as you did it to one of the least of these, you have done it to me." Now, of course, our universalist forebears would balk at the notion of the eternal punishment that awaited those who did not do those things. But they would have embraced this scripture nevertheless, perhaps justifying and interpreting, as many of us today do, that punishment and suffering are experienced in this life, or maybe perhaps in a period later, but not eternally. The point is to do the right thing, the righteous thing, because we are connected to each other, because we belong to each other. To see and experience the divine, that which you hold most high, most precious in each person, in each moment, in each interaction. The point is to engage in relationship, consciously and creatively, compassionately and courageously. And to do so from a place not necessarily of winning, not necessarily of defeating an evil on the other side, but more so from the perspective and for the purpose of revealing the holy through that interaction, through engaging in what philosopher James Carse would call an infinite game, as opposed to a finite one in which we are able to see ourselves and others beyond roles, and instead entering into mystery and unknownness to perpetuate a game that goes on and includes more and more others, to create a merely imagined future. From this perspective, the setbacks and shortcomings in our justice work are not disappointments. They're rather new surprises to be engaged with that courage and creativity. Which is not to say that injustice and tragedy is any less serious, any less calamitous, but rather that it is an expected part of the work. So I would posit, friends, that this work, this sacred activism, is what calls us here to begin with, though we might call it by another name: the seeking a beloved community, the joining with others of like minds and hearts, the looking for support and encouragement. They are all essentially part of these two great tastes that taste great together. So this is how it begins: by getting messy, by bumping into each other, by getting chocolate in your peanut butter and peanut butter in your chocolate. Discover the divine activism and the activist divinity that is within you and that is all around.
I'm your call to action. What's stopping us from taking action on climate change? What's stopping you? What's stopping me? It's too hard? Is it Trump? No time. Got to raise the kids. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what will be effective. It's just too big. We all have doubts, reasons, and excuses for failing to reduce our consumption of fossil fuels radically for the sake of humanity. And we all have excuses for not demanding that our institutions and our government do the same. Our minds don't see climate change. We look outside, we see a blue sky, we see trees, everything's fine. Our minds don't see climate change as the huge thing it is. Or maybe we see it as so big that we can't do anything about it. But the reality is that we've already done something about it. What we are seeing today in terms of climate change is the result of what we and others have done 10, 20, 30 years ago. Were you around then? I certainly was. And our continuous reckless behavior today, right now, will bring on what will devastate us and the children, our children and grandchildren, 10, 20, and 30 years from now. So I repeat, what we do today, what we do today does matter, either positively or negatively for that future. Today, the poor, especially those in other countries and those in our coastal cities, are feeling the worst of climate change impacts. But it won't be long before everyone is impacted. Human life is in the crosshairs. Failed states, war, migration, immigration, food shortages, drought, intense storms, crop failures. Who in this church grows all your own food, meeting all your food needs today? It is time now to cut carbon and transition to clean energy and get serious about reducing our consumption. Hey, we've been talking about this since the 1930s when Ruth's mother created that lovely tapestry, right? But Trump and company is leading us off the fossil fuel cliff. Please tell me, what good are wealth and power on a dying planet? It is time that we recognize the hard truth. It's really humanity that will suffer and die. Mother Earth, she'll be just fine without us. So we must keep marching towards a sustainable future, unrelentingly pressuring this Washington chicken coop. And we must take action in our own lives, our own communities, our organizations, and our government. So come, march with us. It's called the People's Climate March because it is about the people, after all. Humanity is at stake. And at the march, make your commitment to leave behind your excuses, my excuses too, and make a personal commitment to stand up and be bold for ourselves, for the kids, for the future. Yes, it's about sacrifice, making sacred activism, and it's about all of us. Environmental ministry will be marching with our church and our church banners in the Utah People's Climate March on Saturday, next Saturday, April 29th at 1 p.m. in solidarity with the march in Washington, D.C., and with sister marches across the country and around the world. We'll be starting at the Salt Lake City Public Library Square and marching to the governor's mansion. We'll be supporting the Utah student-led climate change resolution, the one put forward by Utah high school and college students demanding that the government of Utah recognize climate change and take bold action to defend their future. You remember this one. It's the one that never made it out of committee in our Utah State Legislature this year. And Jim DeBacchus held a special people's hearing about it. And the students, even though it didn't make it out this year of committee, the students are not accepting that. They insist that we keep supporting them and working for their future. So they're asking us. And we will be carrying their resolution through the streets of Salt Lake City, from the public library to the governor's mansion, and delivering it there. Well, the governor won't be there, but there's a puppet of the governor that will be. So you want to be there. Today in Elliott Hall, there'll be an opportunity for you to sign a petition in support of this resolution so that you can be there personally that way. But we also want you there physically at the march if you can. Our kids, our students are asking us to boldly stand up for them. And we are asking you to join us in answering their call to action. Will you join us? like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. It might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. And I know it's gonna be a hard fight, but I will stay right here. I will shine a light in the darkest hour. I will face the man in the tallest Trump tower. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. Looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. And I know it might be a long time until the last one of us is free. I will hold on tight, stay by your side. I will be with you for this whole damn ride. It looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And you know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. 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 I'm gonna walk it with you.
While still needing the light from our chalice, please allow me to share our closing words. We will recover our sense of wonder and our sense of the sacred only if we appreciate the living world beyond ourselves as a revelatory experience. The living world is a manifestation of that sublime presence. From this presence, all things come into being, and all things came into being. The human venture depends absolutely on this quality of awe and reverence. The living world around us is the primary sacred reality. We become sacred by our vivid and continuous participation. May we cause a new revelatory experience to take place, an experience wherein human consciousness awakens to the grandeur of our Earth's wondrous processes. In such a renewal lies our hope for the future, for ourselves, and for the entire planet on which we live. With our Earth and our living systems, we will go into the future as one sacred community, a single sacred community, or we will perish.